Match day 29, partially in the books. Handful of games this week. A lot of them delayed due to FA Cup action. Big surprise with Fulham returning to their home merchant form, picking up all 3 points against Tottenham. Huge loss for Tottenham. On the flip side of the top four race, Villa drop points, or maybe they pick up one, depending how you look at it, as they draw with West Ham. We'll cover the other two games and much more. This is the Premiership Cruiser Podcast.
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! Back, Fuchs, and the ball in behind Damian Varney! It's 11! It's heaven for Jamie Varney!
You are an ostrich. Well, your head must be in the sand. Is your head in the sand? Are you flexible enough to get your head in the sand?
Now the fans are shouting every week, Louis van Gaal's army! Louis van Gaal's army!
Feet after a fabulous start, the game just got away from you there.
I have nothing to say.
Nothing to say about the game at all.
Drama from day one! This is the league we want to watch!
Oh,
40%. 40% of the match week.
Yeah, isn't it sad? And on top of that, we get dunked on with like a whatchamacallit, international break.
Okay, we take a little rest, a little relaxation.
I never rest.
Come back.
I need the rest. I need to get away from Chelsea Football Club.
Yes.
They need to get out of my life.
Yes, indeed. Don't we all? I mean, imagine if there's only 8 teams in the...
We say that, but at the same time, I can't get away from him because David Datro Fofana is goated.
Chelsea just have their tentacles everywhere.
They're all over. That's just returning to tradition for Mr. Todd Bowley. People saying, we want our club back for Chelsea. He's trying to create the lone army again, Sam. He's trying to bring that.
Oh, lone army.
I wonder if they're going to bring back like Marco Van Hinkel and what other legends they can bring back just to loan him out one last time.
That
maybe you re-sign Mason
guy.
Mount and get him to Vitesse or Derby.
Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Is he still on Chelsea?
He's in Milan. No, he's in Milan.
But he's not on loan.
No, he's officially, yeah.
Gotcha.
It will never not be funny that they have like 5 Chelsea guys. And they all came from Chelsea, pretty much. We're talking about Chelsea too much. We need to talk about Burnley and Brentford.
Said no one ever. Well,
we do it because we do it for the fans. All the people out there. You know, the mainstream media, they just sit there and they'll talk. They don't even talk about Premier League this week unless maybe it's Tottenham. So that's what we're here to do, Sam. We're here to break down all the games. So Burnley, Brentford, Sam. It gets off to a very interesting start, to say the least.
Indeed. Early red card for Sergio Reguilon. Just 8 minutes into the game. A push on the back of Vitinho in the box. Not initially given.
Foul.
VAR reviews. It's a red card. It's a penalty. What are you thinking, my guy, Sergio?
Were you a little surprised that it was Brun Larson who took the penalty? I didn't know who their... they don't even get like free kicks, really, Burnley. So like that's one of those things where you probably have to pull out the Premier League app and say, wait, who takes their penalties? Who takes their free kicks?
Well, I would think it would be Josh Brownhill usually, right? But he was on the bench. J-Rod on the bench, of course.
They really should have sent like Charlie Taylor up there to throw us for one.
They really should have. But you know what? Brun Larson, he's been the man of the moment for Burnley so far the past couple of games. Looking like one of their better players, which is a low bar, to be fair. But hey, you got to get the job done when you can. And he converted it from the spot.
Yeah, it's kind of a different look for Burnley in this one. Different guys, Asanon obviously in there. I mean, this we've talked about how long during the year where Burnley kind of change it up too. Probably what, second or third to Brighton in terms of like constantly tinkering with the lineup and stuff. But it works for him here, and Bruno Larson gets the goal. After that, it kind of felt like Burnley were going to be set up for a bit, but Brentford had their plenty of chances in this. But the process looked better, especially when Brentford were pushing for it late on after they got the first goal.
Mhm.
The process in midfield of getting the ball through and getting it there, but that whether it came to the final pass or the last shot, really poor from Brentford, didn't you think?
Yeah, they definitely were lacking the cutting edge. There was that big chance where Burnley nearly played it into their own net, but saved by Mr. Muric getting a start over
Yeah,
Trafford.
Trafford.
That was
Yeah.
surprising, but he played pretty well. Muric did.
Yeah, he
Made
came up
some
with one or
important
two big
saves.
saves. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I don't know. Once Brentford went down to 10, it seemed like, okay, well, Burnley should be able to manage this, but it was fairly even.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the one game or one of the handful, probably 3 to 4. You think, well, Burnley, they like to hold the ball. They'll probably get away with actually having more possession. And then you for sure thought that when they went down to 10 men. However, I mean, it was really only a 60-40 split, so it wasn't like that crazy
Yeah.
of a possession split in favor of Burnley. But, you go through shots on target pretty even. Burnley did have double the shots of Brentford, but, what good is a shot if it's not a shot on net? But, yeah, I mean, from what we've seen previously, Brentford obviously really struggling in form right now. Would have 0 points in their last 6 games if it weren't for Wisa's overhead kick against Chelsea.
Charity FC,
Yeah, that's what they're there for, to give them a draw.
indeed. There was a lot of action just before halftime. Starting off 43 minutes, your guy, David Datro Fofana, putting a little Chelsea twist on this game with a
Oh, the
nice
shank.
miss from about 3 yards out, running wide open.
That was really good. There's a couple this week, but this was obviously the best of the bunch.
Mhm.
Um, I can't believe that happened, and that's one of those where it's like, if they lose, you know why, or if they draw, you know why. It comes back to this. So, uh, tough break for Mr. Fafana there. He only hits bangers.
Mhm. Muric came up with a big save on Wisa, threw on goal, and then at the other end, Bruno Larson had a chance saved, and Fofana nearly catching Flecken sleeping, but he slipped on the chance and was able to capitalize. So it goes into halftime, 1-0. Second half, Burnley possessing the ball a little bit better, actually able to capitalize on a play where they worked the ball from back to front, 62 minutes in. Hank's guy, David Datro Fofana, redeems himself with a nice little dink over Flecken to double the
Burnley's
lead.
Burnley's defense on there was questionable to let Brentford have a good chance there, but that was I'm going to say it right now because there's no question about it. I feel like that was Burnley's best moment of the year.
Yes.
The transition play from defense to midfield to attack. It was perfect. It was perfect, and that's what they go for. But and this is why people had faith in them at the start of the year. They repaid it there. It's just unfortunate that games aren't going to be as open as this game, where the other team's down to 10 men
Yeah.
and they have to go for it.
If
So
if
while the
only
style
the
of
other
play
team
worked,
had to play with 10 men.
yeah, that's the thing is if teams are playing very open and playing down a man, the system works. It's like, okay, well, when does that happen? So, but no, can't take anything away from Burnley on that one. Fantastic play. Fofana gets it right, gets a goal, puts them up 2-0.
Mm-hmm. After that, Brentford pushed to get back into the game. They had a couple of chances through Keane Lewis Potter and Ivan Toney, but unable to capitalize on
Lewis
those.
Potter, that header was really nice from that position
Yes.
that he was in. I can't believe he got that much power on it. I thought it might have a chance of going in.
Indeed. They did eventually pull one back 83 minutes in. Christopher Ayer with the nice header, but it was too late for them to really get back into the game in time. Had the very late chance, scoring in the 90 plus 7th minute, but disallowed because Ivan Toney fouled Muric, which is pretty clear. It was weird.
It was one of those things where I feel like if he didn't touch him or if he was a little later, I think Muric was going to miss that ball.
Yeah,
I have no proof, and
there's a
we'll never know
chance.
because it's an alternate timeline. But it just felt like he was not going to get that ball because he was off put by even the idea of Toney getting there. But Toney touching him kind of threw it off. Toney also had another chance where he's kind of played through, had a poor touch, a little too far out of his reach, and then he kicked Muric like right in the head. And he
Yeah.
had to get like bandages. That was rough.
Brentford is starting to build a reputation of, being a little
New Stoke.
a bit stokish. Yeah.
Stokish.
And I'm not sure I'm really here for it.
Well, someone has to do it, but I just wouldn't have thought it was Brentford because you think of Brentford kind of as just a, I don't know. I
A
still have
respectable
them.
club.
Well, I think of them more as like the Moneyball kind of frisky team, but I think of them as hardworking, but not in like that sense where they're really kind of grinding it out. I think the big news for Brentford is that Brian Mbeumo's back, came on for the last 10 minutes. So maybe he'll be playing more coming up here, you would have to imagine.
Hope
You'll
so.
probably see more Moppy rather than Wisa because Wisa kind of hasn't done much lately. In one game, And before that, he was playing well, but one game against Burnley, that's all it takes for me. But yeah, Brentford in a real slide, Sam. Most out of team form in like the top 7 or 6 European leagues. Pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's bad.
When you're
Yeah.
losing to Burnley, it's bad.
Right.
Burnley making the late great escape. They got Chelsea coming up, so you could probably put them down for at least 1 point there.
Yeah. Brentford.
Couple more point deductions. Are they in business?
Brentford, you really
I
don't
just-
want to, give away a cheap red card and penalty 8 minutes into the game, and you
'cause
definitely
then you're
don't
just
want to do
behind
it
the 8
against
ball.
Burnley.
Yeah, you're totally behind the 8 ball. And it's just like, really, against Burnley? This should be like not a guaranteed win, but at least a point, with high upside to win. So brutal result for them. Burnley kind of keeps their hopes alive if you have any hopes still. But
No.
probably not. But still, I know you don't. But if you're a Burnley fan,
They
you
they
can point to it and
squeak
be like,
out a
"Oh,
win by playing 90% of the game up a man. That doesn't do it for me.
Yes, yes. Well, if that happens a few times, you string some of those together, Sam. You get Vitinho in the box and put him in a position where he can be shoved over.
Yeah.
Now you're cooking. Let's move on to the other game that was near the bottom of the table. Luton and Forest, the 6-pointer.
Yes, this was a very important 4 games for the bottom of the table. Strictly speaking, Burnley, Brentford, and Luton, Forest. A lot of action at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, there are 2 games for the bottom or the relegation zone, and then there's 2 important games for the top 4 race.
Top 4 kind of Europa spots as well.
Yeah.
Fulham and West Ham looking to get in those spots.
Okay, well, Fulham. Come on now. Fulham's below Chelsea for crying out loud.
Well,
You're going to try to tell me Chelsea has a chance to get Europa League or even Conference League?
It can't be ruled out. I think anyone could do anything at this point.
Except Arsenal win the league is what you'll tell me, even though I'm the
Yes.
one who will tell you
I
that.
mean, Chelsea have 2 games in hand, man. You give them 6
Yeah,
points out of those
have you
games,
seen their upcoming schedule?
they're in 45 points. That puts them in 7th place.
Yeah, you know they got coming up. They got teams like Burnley, Sam. That's
3
draws
wins.
at best.
3 wins.
Draws, not for Chelsea. Let's get to Luton and Forest here. Forest starting pretty well in this one. I didn't think Luton played all that bad, especially in a attack kind of early, but it got better as the game went on for attack, to say the least. Wasn't Luton's peak in terms of attack, to say the least.
They had that like Ross Barkley triple chance.
Yeah, that
three
was really rough.
chances within the span of like 5 minutes.
Ross was having a rough go. Alfie Doughty could not have an impact on the game. I don't even think
Yeah.
Forrest tried to neutralize him, but somehow he just was. I think part of that is Forrest actually kind of just loading up the midfield and having a bunch of guys out there. Amazing Gibbs White game for Forrest. He was cooking out there, to say the least. I would say, we haven't really talked about it. Got to be on the top 10 mentions for flops. Sangare this year and his impact. Now, he kind of came in not with the summer, so he didn't have a preseason with the team and stuff. And he's had 1 or 2 injury kind of things, but he just has not had the impact that we thought he might have with this team.
No, and that just shows the whole, oh, this guy looks great on paper with his stats.
Are you talking about
doesn't always work out.
the tacticos? The
Yes.
tacticos who think, oh, this guy, he's going to be amazing. You know what it is, Sam? It's another notch in your belt for Eredivisie. Bad crossover with the Premier League.
That is true.
Put that one in there. How about your boy Divock Origi out there again?
Yeah,
Putting in a good 75 minutes.
I knew when I saw him starting, like, okay, well, this isn't going to be a high scoring.
I'm not one of those American, you got to pecker crank and support the American players no matter what. But where is Gio Reyna? Is he not? He makes the bench and stuff. I figure they'd at least throw him out there. He has to be better than Divock Origi.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see what the point is in
Even
bringing
then,
him on.
Callum Hudson-Odoi is better than Divock Origi.
Yeah.
I think anyone on this team is probably better than Divock Origi. Or even just throwing out another midfielder like Dominguez. I guess I just don't get it, but you can't question Nuno, ball, Sam. Can't do it. Forrest do get the early goal. Gibbs White feeding Chris Wood. Chris Wood, little ripski, little flick on. How you like that, Sam?
Chris Wood's goals per 90 minutes has to be pretty nuts this year.
Yeah, and I called for them to sit him. I thought that this would have been a good Awani game, but they weren't ever really looking to play guys in behind. And obviously Awani doesn't even make the squad in this one, but I just felt like there's chances with how open Luton can get when they really push for attack. It just leaves them so just open, to say the least.
Yeah.
That maybe they try Alonga in behind or something like that, but didn't really go for that much, Forrest.
Yeah, it was much more played in the midfield, which was a little unexpected. Not a whole lot of quality chances, really, for either side. Chance creation. Yeah, 41 minutes in, Mengi draws level from a corner, but ruled out for a handball.
Yeah, which is pretty brutal for the fact that he was totally unmarked on that. It was like a free header, and it just hit his hand. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, pretty unfortunate.
Also, kind of wish Townsend would have came on sooner or just started the game. Not the Jordan Clark experience is not for me, Sam.
No, and I I prefer to hit Chong off the bench personally, just because he's more of, go out there and
I
just
think it's one
run
of
a
those
lot.
things. True. I agree with that, but I think it's one of those things where he scored once or twice lately. Like the Bournemouth game, he's got a start and scored, so it's probably Rob Edwards rewarding him for that.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at their bench, it's pretty
Stinky.
rough.
Zach Nelson, come on down. Tim Kroll, Tim Kroll getting in that.
You know it's bad when you got two keepers on the bench.
That is rough. Goes in halftime 1-0 in favor of Forest. Forest looking the better side. Second half, like I said, Luton really worked their way into this. Luton tried to play for you know how like certain teams will like kind of peak at certain points of the game. Luton like try to peak from minute like 70 on, and they're like, we're throwing everything forward, and we're getting the crowd just rocking, and the other team's just gonna get at least a little bit nervous, just a little bit.
You gotta.
Um, what was I gonna say that stood out in this one? Oh, and Podzu having to come off because he got like body checked into the half wall. That was pretty rough.
That was pretty rough. For some reason, they're like 6 inches away from
Yeah, that was
the
not good.
sidelines.
The Ken is not a forgiving place, Sam.
No, that's true.
Torturous.
True. Yeah, there was a couple chances for both sides. Mengi had a chance, or Mengi cleared a chance from Alanga off the line, and then Murillo almost catching Kaminsky from
Yeah,
distance.
Murillo from like the half line just blasting it.
Yeah,
That was pretty
interesting.
wild. What do you think about the rumors that he is being looked at by top 6 clubs?
I mean, I don't hate it. I was surprised. I didn't realize he was like 21 years old. He looks like a
Yeah,
grown ass man.
yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like he could use another year or two at a team that's kind of mid-table or lower in the table. But I mean, I think he's promising.
I think he has really good
Not to
composure on the ball, which
Oh,
would
for
be
sure.
good.
He's one of those guys. I think teams get obsessed with the idea of having like passing merchant center backs, and it's like, oh, they're not good at defending. And it's like, well, that's kind of your job.
Yeah.
Sure you're a specialist, but also like if you're in a one-on-one, I have to have faith that you're not going to get totally cooked. I do have faith with him that his defense is actually good, but yeah, he does possess that. We saw the run against Palace this year, where he almost went all the way, and then we saw this where he's able to kind of just almost totally catch Kaminsky out. So he's an interesting player. I just think he's probably, what was the old NBA thing? He's 2 years away from being 2 years away or something like that. He's probably
Yeah.
less than that, but he's 2 years away from being really good.
Yeah, I think perhaps. I mean, there is
Then
a
again, if you got him in a team
argument.
like City or something, he'd probably just be amazing right away, or Liverpool or
Yeah,
something.
that's
He'd
true.
probably just be fit in right away.
So it gets down to the nitty gritty time where Luton like to do their cooking, and you know what? They do some cooking. They throw a little berry on it. How
Only
about a
one
little
little
Luke
bear of
berry?
the Luke variety, yeah.
Drawing level from a corner. Luton going absolutely nuts. They manage to rescue a point. There is a late chance for Ryan Yates. He blasted a chance wide 97th minute. That would have
Yeah,
been
it's
pretty nutty.
not what you want to have happen if you're Forrest in terms of letting the chance fall to Mr. Yates.
But yeah, finishes 1-1. Luton salvage a point. Forest, they got the points deduction, so they need all the points they can get.
Say the least.
They're a point behind Luton now in the drop zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Sitting there at 21 points, whereas Luton are 22.
Yeah.
We'll talk about kind of points deduction stuff a little later on in this podcast. Get Sam's take on it. You don't want to hear my take because What do you care about what I have to say? Let's go on the last game of Saturday.
Let's.
Kind of a weird game, to say the least.
Yeah, we're
Tottenham,
talking
Fulham.
Fulham, Tottenham at the Cottage.
It just felt like a very weird game the whole time. Um, Tottenham totally in the driver's seat to start. And, we talk about how Luton kind of leaves it late. Tottenham really seemed to work their way into games too. Not as much to the extreme as Luton,
Yeah,
but
definitely a second half
Ainge.
kind of team.
Yeah, Ainge is very good. Probably one of the best managers already in the Premier League in terms of making early second half adjustments to help his side. But yeah, this one, Tottenham had plenty of chances early and just kind of fluffed a lot of them, whether it was Son kind of sailing one or two high, or I
Hmm.
think, was it Madison who drilled that one just wide of the post?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was just weird, kind of weird stuff where it's like, oh man.
Yeah, I
And it's
think
not like it's like, and it was chances not necessarily where it was like, you have to score it, but it's one of those where Tottenham have these guys that kind of, it's stuff where it's like expected goals. And it's like they overperform their expected goals because they score goals like this. And then when they don't, you're just like, oh, that's kind of odd.
Fulham came into this one and they set up pretty well, kind of sitting in a mid block and trying to catch the pass from Tottenham's defense into the midfield, trying to turn over Tottenham and hit on the counter. But like you said, there were chances for Tottenham that they just weren't able to capitalize, and that really would have changed the game. But not able to capitalize on those chances leaves it open for Fulham, and Fulham did show, that they could turn it around and, catch Tottenham out on the counter, especially, Tottenham, they got the fullbacks pushing up, and Fulham, they like a nice wide play.
Yeah. No,
Getting
and it
Robinson down the wing.
absolutely. Uh and in this game, yeah, Fulham's setup has been really nice. I thought both of Tosin and Bassey played well in this game. Set up, and then yeah, you're right. Fulham just kind of loading it. This is the kind of game where João Paulinho will have a field day. He'll have the João Paulinho performance of winning a bunch of tackles, and then also simultaneously will have a yellow and whatnot, have a couple questionable challenges and stuff. But that's the experience with him. I actually got some decent play out of Lukic. I'm not a huge fan of him, and I mean, we'd be silly not to mention the man of the hour, Rodrigo Muniz, Sam.
The man cannot stop scoring, and that first goal was really a showcase that he's not just like a tap-in merchant or anything. Great
Yeah.
ball in from Robinson. Great first touch from Muniz, and then a really nice finish. He's got the size and he's got the ability. I think that's a pretty good combo to have.
To say the least. It's one of those things where you'll see a guy where he has the same kind of skill set or kind of player that he's supposed to be as far as a template. And you're like, oh, I don't know why this guy doesn't work. And then you'll just have a guy like Muniz who comes out of nowhere, same thing, and it works. And it's like, wow. I mean, Fulham brought in a guy very similar in terms of Broya, where it's like he has, big frame, big stature, kind of power, speed guy. And he's just obviously hasn't hit the ground running because Muniz is just getting all the starts because he's scoring the goals.
He is indeed. Yeah, it goes in halftime, 1-0. Second half, Fulham getting an early goal. He will be finding Castagna on the right, puts in a cross that's kind of just turned in by Lukic off his knee. It's
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was weird.
Fulham.
The near post run, but he knees it to the back.
Yeah,
The back post.
it's like Fulham. They do well capitalizing kind of on their opportunities. They're not going to dominate a game from 0 to 90. They're going to have these spells of 10 minutes or so where they can hurt you, and they did it just before halftime, and then coming out of halftime, and then Tottenham. Next thing you know, you're down 2-0.
Yeah, and where Fulham, like you said, playing kind of a sitting back but not totally low block. But now they can just really sit back, and if they want to, you go low block, and it's like now you have to break that down in 30 minutes, and it's not going to be easy with a defense that's playing a little better lately, and Bernd Leno somehow one of the best keepers again this year. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
what a signing that's been.
Yes, very
You
good
figured
value.
even just last year they got their money's worth after him being like a top 3 goalie. Now this year, not quite as good, but still a terrific performance. I think they're also maybe not as reliant on him as last year, but
Yeah.
and then your guy Muniz gets a second, Sam.
Yeah, just capitalizing on a corner where Tottenham doesn't really defend all that well. There's that first ball in, kind of, I think it was Polina who headed it up to Bassi, who smashed a shot right off the post, and then it just fell to the onrushing Muniz, and that's just kind of like a who wants it more type play. Ball up for grabs, and Muniz just there, the poacher's instinct, throwing his body at it. Took some contact on it. I think I heard him yell "and one."
Absolutely, no doubt.
But yeah, Fulham 3-0.
Yeah, and even after that, they were still in control. I think they had a disallowed goal at some point, did they not? I could have sworn they did. Maybe they didn't. I might be thinking of something else. That's the problem with all that. You have the Premier League games, and then I watch all the FA Cup games, and then it kind of gets jumbled in my brain. I could just be thinking of the West Ham disallowed goal too. it's a few things in my mind, but yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Finishes.
Right.
Who was it?
Polina was
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
disallowed.
off the free kick from midfield. Yeah, duh. He had and it like bounced out to him, and he ripped it. Yeah, I knew I wasn't totally crazy, but I mean, so yeah,
Just a
I
little
wouldn't say
crazy.
Fulham dominated the game, but they played it perfectly
Mm-hmm.
and totally deserving of 3 points. Tottenham on another day, maybe one of the Son or Madison chances goes in. I can't even think of what chance they had in the second half. Like Richarlison had one that he totally fluffed, but other than that, I'm struggling to think of anything they did of real note or value. Um, yeah. So you think Fulham has a chance for Europe? It's still in play. Let me
I
pull up
mean,
the table here.
anyone could go on a good run to end the season. Good final 10 games. Who knows? Anything's possible. I mean, teams above them, Chelsea, Newcastle. They're kind of meh.
Can I,
Wolves are playing well. Brighton, they don't
if you had to
inspire me.
bet on one team to like not even come close and finish in like that 12th spot, even Bournemouth, they have a game in hand, I guess, and they're 3 points back of Fulham, but that's kind of stretching it. 9 points back of West Ham
Yeah, I don't think
at the
Bournemouth
moment.
is.
But if they won, they'd be 6. But you get my point. Is there one team that stands out to you where you don't have any faith in them making a run in that range of 7 to 12? Because I kind of have a team
I
that
feel
I
like
just don't. I
I
don't
feel
think they
like
have it.
Newcastle kind of is
All right.
just mailing it in for the
Okay.
remainder of
So
the season.
yeah, we're on the same page.
Like I think
Also,
it's
Brighton kind of, but
yeah.
you never know. They could just have like Enciso or something pop off for 4 games and that'd be fine. Or if you
Yeah.
get anything out of Evan Ferguson.
And now Newcastle losing Sven Botman.
But not even them just losing him, but another guy where teams like United and Chelsea and Liverpool were looking at him apparently. So big big loss for Newcastle there. Should we move
Mm-hmm.
on to the final game? The one Sunday game?
Yes.
All right.
Back-to-back Claret and Blue derbies for West Ham.
Yeah. Another great areola game in this one, to say the least. Would you, before we get into it, is West Ham, is he their best player like of the year?
Oh, I think there definitely could be a case to be made for that. He's been really good this season.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been fantastic. You see why he was kind of supposed to be a Wunderkind kind of guy, and he's at PSG for a while for a reason. It seemed like he's going to be
Yeah,
really great. Now
I
he's kind of
think
showing flashes.
I think there's also an argument to be made for Paqueta. Just if you look at
How
the
they win with
stats,
him on the field. Yeah.
yeah, with him
But
versus
is it
without him.
Paqueta or is it Calvin Phillips? You tell me.
Yes,
Which one? What is it really? Because it's not like they really have like no midfield depth whatsoever. Still, like even though they got Alvarez, who's been fantastic for him, and they have Ward Prowse after spending the Rice money, they still have like no depth in midfield. It's crazy. You look at their bench; it's probably all defenders.
what about George Earthy?
Who?
Yeah, they do
Earthy?
have a lot of
I
defenders.
mean, look at this.
Johnson, Cresswell, and
George Earthy,
Bonner.
number 40. Wow. Yeah, the only guy in midfield's Calvin Phillips on the bench, so that's pretty
Ward Prowse.
good. And not to mention, they still have an aging squad.
Yeah.
Angelo Agbana. Wow. Almost
Antonio,
36.
Ings, Suchek,
Yeah.
Sufal,
Yeah. Oof.
Fabianski,
Fabianski. It's an old team.
Cresswell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Let's
is
get
old.
in. Let's get in the game here. Kind of lined up how we thought in terms of Villa kind of controlling the ball, controlling the possession. You know, it's not like we didn't know how the game was going to go. It just came down to really if West Ham could kind of make good on their chances and kind of counterattack quite a bit, and they did. They did have a fair amount of chances, Sam.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think, early on, even Villa starting off chances. Wally Watkins, Ollie Watkins had a
Wally
chance at the
Atkins.
near post
Wally
save.
Atkins.
Then there was that handball shout on Emerson that was not given,
Yeah,
which I felt like
it could have been.
that was on
But
the edge.
I wouldn't have. But that's former Chelsea lad, former Europa League winner. Can't call that on him. He
Speaking
gets
of
those
players
calls.
of the season, I think Emerson he's definitely in the top 3 for West Ham.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think he might be the second or third best left back in the league. We're in a weird stage right now. We're just gonna go on tangents right now, where a lot of like the best guys for certain positions and whatnot, especially striker and like fullback, are all on like not top 6 teams.
That's true.
Like obviously Holland's the best striker, but right after that, I mean, would you say Watkins is the second best striker?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of weird in that sense. And then Dom Solanke's up there in terms of strikers, so very very weird stuff. Back to the game.
Yeah, back to
Pascal
the
Gross
game.
leads. Pascal Gross leads in assists. And then it's Trippier, Watkins, Neto. Craziness.
Yeah, West Ham getting some chances for themselves. Sufal having a deflected shot, and a chance that he potentially could have had a free goal at the back post, but he was too busy complaining that he didn't get the ball, and then he made a late run, and then that
That's
chance
a me
got
kind of move.
deflected. But you know what? A few minutes later, he provides an assist, finds Mikel Antonio at the back post with a diving header. The old man can get down.
Might be his last goal for West Ham.
You would have to think.
Yeah. It's a heck of a way to go out if it
Yeah.
is. Maybe he gets one more if they
Was
start him.
nice.
Surprised they didn't incorporate Danny Ings in this one after, could have had a hat trick against Burnley.
They never want to let Danny Ings cook for prolonged time.
It's because he's out with the hair transplant.
He's in Turkey.
Something like that. Oh my gosh, I hate to interrupt this, but did you see the news that Joe Worrell wants to stay at Besiktas and is selling for us to like sell to Besiktas.
I didn't know Joe Worrell was at Besiktas.
Yeah, he got loaned out this year.
That's a
So
FIFA transfer if I've ever seen.
yeah, and he wants to stay there. He must really love Turkey.
Yeah. Anyways, Joe Worrell. Tangent aside, but yeah,
Yeah.
Villa, trying to play out of the back, making mistakes, leading to chances for West Ham. We've seen this before with Villa. They don't move the ball quick enough in midfield. That's
Or
just
out of their defense.
or out of their
They're just
defense.
going, yeah, they're just holding the ball, and it's like, no, it's easy to play that style at home, but on the road, it's pretty tough unless you. It's one of those things where if you're in possession, you got to make sure you're in the other team's half. It cannot be one where you're in midfield or in your own third trying to do that constantly. And it just feels like Villa. This is partially why they're home merchants. It's not because, albeit the Villa crowd is great. It's just easier to play with your home fans that play style when you're messing around with the ball at the back, than when you're on the road.
Yeah.
Things get a little more squeaky bum time. Things get tighter, passes get sloppier, have to make quicker decisions, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, and you want to see Villa play, adjust their style when they see it's not working, but that isn't always the case. They'll try and force it.
No,
But anyways.
they're very set in playing their way, except when they have to play Tottenham, and they're like, what if we totally change what we're doing in terms of formation and stuff?
That is true.
So we'll get to it, but I was just hyped that you're another call. What are you, like 2 for 3 or 3 for 4 lately on your goal calls?
This one should be
You're
like double
actually on
points.
fire. Yeah. He came off the bench. He hasn't even played in a while.
Yeah.
You just call it. It's like calling. What you did is pretty much the equivalent of calling like a pinch hit home run for a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, goes into halftime 1-0. Second half, Villa pushing for the equalizer, but lacking quality in the final third. Digne had a chance, almost catching Areola with a shot. Areola made the save on that one. And then at the other end, chance for Paqueta from a free kick from outside the box. And then there's a chance for Konsa, and then the goal coming in the 79th minute. Zaniolo, just as I predicted, scoring with a late run into the box to get on the end of the cutback from Diaby. Good to see Diaby cooking there. And Zaniolo.
They need it.
Zaniolo coming off the bench. I don't know. Zaniolo. I wrote Zaniola. Zaniolo coming off the bench.
This is what we expected from Villa to start the year, where it's one of those things where when Bailey and Watkins aren't really going, it'll be Diaby and Zaniolo will be 2 guys that'll pop up. But we expected a little more than it's happened. Diaby started pretty decently, but really faded. And it's been a lot of heavy carrying by Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins. But yeah, this was huge. Obviously securing the point for Villa, or so we thought. West Ham had something to say about that a little later, but yeah, nice run, great finish, way to pop up Fox in the box style for Zaniolo.
Yeah, it's good to see some urgency out of Aston Villa there, but like you said, a couple of late chances for West Ham. Ward-Prowse had one, came on rushing towards goal, but his shot was blocked vitally by Matty Cash. Then just a few minutes later, West Ham getting a free kick. And Mavropanos / Suchek / Bowen bundle in the ball from Ward-Prowse, but after a VAR review, it was disallowed for a pretty clear handball on Suchek.
Yeah, to say the least. Pretty Pretty clear.
It took them so long to review it, but then once they found the right angle, it was like, whoa, that's a very blatant handball.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's been a lot of times this year where it's just VAR reviews are just killing me. Just killing me when I'm watching it. I
Yeah.
mean, lucky enough in this one, I watched it after the fact. And you just skip it, but it's like watching it live, it's like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, it's insane.
What would take so long?
Absolutely insane. But anyways, that one ends 1-1. The points are shared. Aston Villa, a
They
chance
gotta
for
feel
them.
maybe a little lucky in this one. This felt like one where West Ham at the beginning of the year when they're really cooking would somehow win it.
Yeah.
But right now they've fell out of form for a little bit. They're playing better, but they're kind of getting back to what they were. But as long as Calvin Phillips isn't in there, they always have a chance to win it.
Yes. That is very true.
So
On the
we
other
look
hand,
at. Oh,
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say Aston Villa and Tottenham, kind of looking at each other like, you finish in fourth. No, you finish in fourth.
Yeah, they're both just stumbling, and I mean that's part of Villa kind of not really having that experience.
Yeah.
Obviously a big club in terms of England and stuff, as far as right outside the top six. Villa's going to be one of those teams like Everton, Newcastle that are people think about as marquee mid-table clubs. But yeah, looking at it right now, Villa in fourth, 56 points with 29 played. Tottenham have a game in hand, but they're 3 points back. So pretty much a must-win situation. And the goal difference is 18 and 17. So if Tottenham win that game in hand, it'll be favorable to them, and they still should be favored to get that fourth spot. United, they can't be ruled out, Sam, just because you never know. They have a game in hand too, and they're 9 points back of Villa, but it's not February now, is it, Sam?
No, it's
So
definitely not. But they do play Brentford next, which
that would kind of be a United one to lose. I'm not going to lie. At the bottom, Sheffield sitting on 14, Burnley 17, Forest 21, Luton 22, Everton 25, Brentford 26, Palace 29. I guess you can include them until they get to like 35, but I mean, Palace would quite literally have to like not pick up a point or two the rest of the year to get relegated, right?
yeah,
Or you think they're just safe
at
now?
29,
They
yeah,
literally need like
pretty
a
unlikely.
win, and it's like almost a lock that they'll stay up. Right now, it's like an
Yeah.
85% chance.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
when you got teams getting point deductions out here.
yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's funny looking at Everton. They're sitting at 25, and they had how many points were they deducted
Yeah.
now? Because it was 10.
6.
6. So they're really at 31. Everton for a while they were like 9th or 10th without the points deduction. Now they're still like 14th.
Yeah,
the
they've
points
been
deduction used to be.
pretty rough lately.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to crap on Sean Dyche or
I am.
you are.
No, I don't know. They're Everton. They're not that good,
Yeah.
but
I think they're doing fine. I mean, they're definitely not all points things aside quality wise. They shouldn't be relegated this year. They're not one of the 3 worst teams, but it is kind of unsettling that it has to be McNeil or Harrison that creates. Otherwise, there's just no way of them even getting a point, right? I mean,
yeah.
don't get me wrong, Ducore earlier this year has had his moments and stuff, but at the moment, it's really how it is. All right, let's go on to some talking points real quick. Just a few things in the news that Sam and I really want to cover. And then we'll wrap it up here. But first is that financial fair play ramification, Sam. Likelihood that more clubs are punished. Today we saw Leicester City will be punished, so when they come up this next year, they're already going to start with a points deduction or last year they didn't report certain financial losses, or was it 2 years ago? It was one of the two. It's either last year or 2 years ago. But since they're not in the Premier League, it can't affect them in the Championship. It can only affect them when they're in the Premier League. So that's a start. Everton's obviously got points deduction. Forest has two. What's weird is people aren't even clamoring for Chelsea to get points deduction now. It's all about Man City. People only care about Man City getting deducted points, which is kind of weird because Man City is the team that people default to, and they're like, who do you want to win the league? Because Man City don't really have a terrific fan base and a presence, and they're kind of just a new team. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, they don't have a soul.
Yeah, so people default to them, whereas if Arsenal or Liverpool won, their fans would be insufferable. So I thought that was kind of interesting. What do you think about potential financial fair play as it stands? What's been handed down, and what's to come? Because what's to come, we can't really totally anticipate. I get that, especially for mid-table teams. It's just kind of random, like Leicester, Everton, and Forest. Like, who's to say Palace or Bournemouth or Fulham don't get something thrown at them too? It could happen, but
Yeah, I
you
could
don't
see
know.
Bournemouth too. I mean, spent a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of stupid because it's punishing these smaller teams that are trying to compete. Meanwhile, you have Man City with their 115 charges getting away with it for the time being, and looks like, it won't be until after the season when that even starts. And of course, there will be an appeal
Yeah.
to that, so that doesn't really matter. Chelsea, you feel like they must get something, but maybe they
What's
sneak
weird
by.
about it with Chelsea's case is that it's apparently not the new regime and their crazy spending on transfer fees. It's all about the Abramovich era.
For now.
Well, they're saying that it's just that because of what Chelsea's done as far as spending on these contracts is not much. You look at their wage bill, and these young guys are still only making 30 to 50,000. So that's why it's not crazy on that end. But apparently, with these shady dealings, like even Tottenham earlier this year got like I forget what transfer it was, but it's one from a couple years back where they were thrown in the mix for potential like points deduction for shady financial stuff. So very, very odd stuff. We don't know anything until it's all official. I just feel like somehow, some way, Chelsea and City will both go unpunished. And the only reason I have to point at that, Sam, is thinking back, was that 4 or 5 years ago? Maybe not that long ago. When did City get the European ban handed on them? And then it was appealed, and then the appeal was uplifted? Is that like 3 years ago?
It was probably more than that.
COVID's really thrown off like my memory in terms of when stuff was. But yeah, remember that? I feel like people don't talk about that anymore. Where
Yeah.
it's UEFA comes out and they're like, yeah, Man City, their spending is so preposterous they can't do that, and they're going to be banned from competitions. And then they appeal it, and it's instantly, actually nope, they're good. It's like, oh, who could have seen that coming?
Yeah.
It's about as fake as WWE wrestling, like it's just
Yeah.
it's so
I
fraudulent.
think just as a final point that this whole points deduction thing, it's just not a good look for the league, and they need to figure out a solution to it. Obviously
Yeah.
you want teams playing fair, but it also kind of calls into question the legitimacy of the league.
When certain teams are getting punished more than other teams and stuff. And now you're getting these reports for clicks where it's like the Sun and Daily Mail and stuff, shitty sources, and they're like, Chelsea and City could be relegated from the Premier League. It's like, well, you have nothing to report. Because while it could happen, it could also just go totally unpunished, which is a million times more likely. It's just no one's going to read that. So I don't know. It's all up in there. It's all speculation. It's interesting to think about, but I think my big takeaway is don't hold your breath on City or Tottenham or Chelsea getting punished. But yeah, these smaller mid-table teams are definitely going to get punished, which is stupid. But hey, I mean, the only one I could really see is maybe Forest, because who have they sold? What have they done?
Yeah, apparently
You know, I
Forest
kind of
need
get
to
that.
sell players by like the end of June.
Well, that's for a lot of these teams, and that's for Chelsea's case too, I think. Uh, that's why you're seeing these reports about Gallagher might just have to go just because, just for homegrown talent to be sold because they spent so much and messed up under the Abramovich era. So we shall see. I just wanted to. We hadn't ever really talked about that, but it's an important thing going on right now. It's kind of crazy. Um, really wanted to get your ideas, Sam, as far as the top 5 players to watch as the season comes to a close. Not necessarily the best guys, but 5 guys you really have your eye on as this year winds down.
Well, I mean, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think if you look at the top teams, you look at kind of the star players on each team. You look at Holland, Salah, De Bruyne, guys like that, Madison on Tottenham, guys
Bruno.
who have been dealing with injuries and they're trying to
No
make their
Bruno.
way back. They haven't necessarily been in form. Well, Bruno's been playing the whole time. That's why he doesn't really fall under this
Well,
category.
he's also terrible
He is
compared to
also
what he has
terrible.
been.
But it's like, okay, so you have all these guys who are either the best player or one of the best at their teams. Which of these guys can kind of reignite their form from earlier in the season and boost their team?
I have a list. There's obviously no definitive uh, thing to any of this. But it's kind of the first one's not even really a player, but I guess there's one player that kind of stands out amongst the crowd. But it's the guys who this might just be the last time we get to see them. Mo Salah, being the primary one that I'm thinking of here. I think there's also sneaky potential for a handful of other guys. We just don't see them, and they're off to Saudi or some other league or something like that. But Mo Salah is the main one, and obviously he's in the title race. Holland has to be in there just because he's in this weird funk right now where it's just like he's missing total gimmies. He's still scoring goals, like normal chances and stuff that come to him. He'll still score once in a while, but he's in this total funk. And it's like, if he gets back to what he had been doing, I mean, City should run away with the league.
Yeah.
I would say another guy to watch for me will definitely be, it's Arsenal in general, but I guess it would probably have to be Saka. The other guy would either be Odegaard, whichever one you want to go. Someone has to like kind of step up of one of those two for Arsenal if they're seriously going to actually challenge for the title. Obviously, they're in first place right now, so they're in the title race, but we've seen the story before. I think it's mainly Saka just because he embodies Arsenal and he's kind of their main guy as far as what the fans rally around. He's what you think of when you think of Arsenal.
Yeah, and he kind of fell off too towards the end of last season, when the going was getting tough.
Absolutely. If we're kind of looking a little further down the table, there's 1 or 2 guys down there where it's guys who potentially could make a move to a bigger club next year. So I'm looking at Neto. I'm looking at Muniz, obviously. I mean, he's cooking for Fulham. Who's to say someone just doesn't throw money at him?
Yeah.
Palace, if they get their guys back, Elise and Etse, I think it'd be interesting ones to watch too. I think that's probably as low as you can go down the table for guys you're looking at. Maybe Tony, if he doesn't recover value, it's like, could someone maybe get him for cheap? And you're like, hey, he finished the year pretty bad. Would you take 60 for him? I think that there's a couple guys who are on their way out to where that'll be interesting. So those are the 3 main kind of categories where it's guys we might not see next year. Impact title race guys that are not on City. Well, Holland's obviously on City, but impact title race guys for Arsenal, City, and Liverpool. And then the next category obviously being guys who might make a move in in the summer to a bigger club. Is there anyone in that last category that stands out to you, Sam? That's kind of lower down the table that
I
might
mean,
make a
like
move?
Gibbs White is interesting. Who would be interested in him?
Yeah. Back to Wolves. Back to
Yeah,
Wolves.
back to Wolves. I mean, not a bad shout. Maybe Newcastle, but I'm not sure if they really can spend that kind of money.
I think maybe, but they probably have to sell Bruno for like 70 to someone. And I just don't know who pays that.
Other than that, what else you do? Maybe
Maybe someone
United.
steals Paulinho from Fulham or something. Um, let's move on. Managerial openings in the summer, Sam. I just wanted you to go through teams right now where if you had to call it that they'd have a manager opening in the summer, or at
Mhm.
least, like late May, end of year kind of thing. How many do you think there'd be? Like, is United one?
Uh, that's a really weird one because it's kind of like neither feels right, honestly, at this point. It feels like
Feels like
they're
Man you
they're
want to
not
do
gonna
better.
sack Ten Hag, but
Exactly.
then it's
But they
also
can't.
like, but yeah, like you said, they want to do better. But
But at the
uh,
same time, he won them the League Cup last year. They're more than likely to go to the FA Cup final. And you might say, well, that's not United standards. Well, you know what United standards are over the last decade, Sam? One Europa League under Jose Mourinho and a League Cup under Ten Hag.
yeah,
So you got to start somewhere winning trophies. So while he might suck in the league right now, if you just had some better transfer strategy, does Ten Hag play necessarily make sense? Is he a great manager? I don't think so, but he is. They're somehow getting results, so it's at least something.
yeah,
Um, West Ham, that'll be one. You'd think Brighton would be two.
yeah,
Uh,
Brighton.
Newcastle's the next interesting one.
Yeah, I could definitely see them move.
I think it's not even a sack. I think it's like a parting ways kind of thing. They're just
Yeah.
like it's a mutual like, even though it really is a sacking, but they just don't say it that way because what Eddie Howe's done for him. Here's another interesting one: Chelsea.
I'm not sure if it even matters at this point with Chelsea. They just seem so rotten.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they have a couple good things going for them, but it's like, do you really attribute that to Pochettino? Because right now it's just Cole Palmer and Malagusto, and that's just individual talent.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
not.
know. I haven't
What do
seen
you
anything
know
out
about?
of I don't know as in whether it can be attributed to
Oh, I see what
Pochettino.
you're saying.
Not
I
saying
thought you were
that
gonna
they're
say,
not playing good.
I don't know if Cole Palmer's any good. I don't
No,
know.
yeah, I
I,
I think this is
I
like
don't know.
if Chelsea didn't even have a manager and they just like rolled out a squad,
Would they be better or worse? I agree with you. I don't
I
think it would
I
make a
don't think they
difference.
would be. Yeah, I don't think it would
I
be any
don't think it'd
different.
make a difference. And part of that is just having a bunch of 22-year-olds. Um, I agree with you there. Fulham, Marco Silva will be back. Bournemouth, no. Palace, they got their guy already. Brentford, I would be pressed to, or not pressed, but I guess kind of perplexed if Thomas Frank wasn't their manager. Not to say he's amazing, but I just don't see them being a drastic change kind of team, you know?
Yeah, unless for some
Everton,
reason a better team tried to pull them away.
yeah.
Could
I
happen,
could
but I
maybe see
don't.
that in a foreign league. I don't think it would be in England, but
Yeah,
what do I know? Uh, Everton, no. Luton, no. Forest, probably, but that's just because Forest are kind of. What would you say Forest are really like as a club? They're like Watford mixed with like Southampton as a team. I don't even know what to compare them to because they're their own thing, but they're really just like the makings of like three bad teams all in one. Like as far as how they're ran,
yeah. I
you know what I
mean,
mean?
I feel like they have kind of a bit of leads in terms of The way that they're
maybe
run,
they're
where
like
they're like
half
bringing all
Leeds,
these
half
guys,
Watford.
and then I think they have at times potential to play well, but
Yeah, their recruitment isn't god awful. Don't get me wrong, but their turnover and stuff, like you said, yeah, it's Leeds/Watford-esque. They just don't sack their manager quite as much.
yeah,
Burnley, no, and it doesn't matter. Sheffield, yes, and it doesn't matter because they won't be in there. So what did we end up with? We ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4. It was really like 4.5, 5 is what we
yeah.
ended up with. Is there one that's most appealing to you?
Most appealing in what sense?
Whatever sense you want to make it.
I
You
mean,
could
I
say
feel like the
Newcastle
most
just for the project.
likely.
You could say
Oh,
United because you'll have a big budget. You could
okay.
say
So you're saying most appealing
Brighton
from
because
a
there's no pressure.
incoming manager.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean Newcastle or United probably. Brighton, I feel like you're coming into a team that's peaking. So
Okay. A club that's peaking in general. I see.
yeah, I mean, not to say that you can't take them higher, as Creed would say, but it's probably more likely that you go in the other direction,
That's interesting.
in my
That's
opinion.
I think that if you really wanted a clean slate kind of team, now I don't know how much say you'd have. I think the best option would be West Ham, if that's your thing.
Their
Because
squad though.
there's a old lot of like we were just talking about the old age guys. They have to do a little mini kind of clear out. But then again, you're probably gonna have to sell Paqueta to like Man City or something at some point.
Oh, and with these clear
And
outs, you got to
Bowen,
be worried about the financial rules being
yes,
enforced now. So
100%. Um, all right, let's go to the England squad. Any quick reactions to that?
I didn't even look at it, but I'm gonna pull it up here
Okay.
and see what their most recent squad. I know they're anti Ben White.
I thought he requested not to be on the team.
Well, yeah, because one of the assistants is a dumbass. Mr.
Wow.
Steve
How?
Holland says Ben White doesn't like football enough.
Well, maybe he doesn't.
That man
Who am
loves
I to say,
football.
you know?
Good to see Jared Branthwaite get a call up.
Yeah, this is like you kind of want to test out right before the Euros, but also there's a couple guys in there where it's like I just don't know if it really matters for
Yeah.
them being in the team and stuff like that and what it is. I
Uh,
think it will be super interesting to see the squad come Euro time, to
yeah.
say the least. I
I
think
mean,
that there's
Jordan
a lot of.
Henderson getting called up still is kind of a meme, but their midfield is pretty weak just in terms of like depth.
Did you see the thing that no Ajax players on the Dutch national team for the first time in like 25 years, and Jordan Henderson's on the English national team? The English national team has an Ajax guy, but the Dutch team doesn't. What are the odds of that? Uh, yeah, it'll be interesting to see with Cole Palmer and stuff. It's one of those things where he can cook when no one's around him, and he kind of has to do everything on his own. But will that make it easier or harder for him? Because there's just a chance he's a good stats, bad team kind of guy. That can't be ruled out. It's like, what
Mhm.
else would Chelsea do if they didn't have him? But sometimes guys off the ball, they struggle to fit in. I don't think Palmer will be like that, but you never know. Any other
The
any other
the
things?
fullback situation is worrying to me. Chilwell, Joe Gomez, and Kyle Walker. That's your
Well,
fullbacks.
Trent should be in there. You would think. Come Euro time, but obviously hurt at the moment. But then again, he's the biggest not the biggest
Yeah, it hasn't
Gareth
really
Southgate
featured
guy.
much in the
Yeah.
England squad.
Also, we didn't talk about this, but the Gareth Southgate to United thing. What'd you think about that?
That would be so funny because that would be horrific. I can guarantee you that would be god awful. And
Well, I mean, he's only ever
the
managed as high
media,
as the championship before.
the media would turn on him like within like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, people already don't like him.
Even if they won the Euros.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No. People really, really high on Kobe Mino was my takeaway. People are
Too
like,
high.
he's an absolute baller. And I was
Too
like,
high.
I don't hate that he's in the team necessarily because it's, it's kind of throwaway games and you see what can happen. But people are really just not penciling him in. People are like putting it in pen. He's like, he's going to be a baller.
Yeah.
This guy's going to be a problem. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Let's
I've seen
pump the
about
brakes a
3
little
good
bit.
performances out of like 7. Ponsa being in the team was kind of weird, but I mean, he has been playing better, to say the least. There's just certain guys where like they're good in their roles with their team, but it's also like I just don't know. I can't see them playing for England. Like Anthony Gordon, good for Newcastle, good for Everton. I just don't know how he would play in the England side. Am I crazy?
I think he'd
for
be.
thinking that?
I don't know. I don't hate it. I feel like he's a plug and play kind of player. I think Bowen is too. I think when you get into
Well, Bowen for sure is. I mean, we've seen it at West Ham. He can be striker, he can be wing, he can do a bunch of stuff.
I think you get
He has
into
experience.
your like, Phil Foden. I don't know if he really fits in the team that much. Conor Gallagher.
I think Foden does, not just because of his talent, but I think he's one of those guys where he can create something out of nothing.
Okay.
And a guy like Gordon, I don't think does that quite well. Gallagher, I really don't see with the England squad him having success. Unless he comes on for the last like 10 minutes and he's just like running at people to try and win the ball or foul or something. Like I don't understand. I just don't see it. All right, last thing. Any hot takes or bold predictions for the end of year? Obviously, next week we'll be doing international break, so it's one of the classic Hank narrative podcasts.
I mean, just looking at Brentford, it's getting a little spicy. They've been pretty bad.
Sam, you told me earlier this year there's no way Brentford will go down.
I
And I'm
know
holding you to that because I
but
bought in on it.
they're getting their guys back, but losing guys at the same time. There's still work to be done. That's what I'll say.
Yes. Their top scorer is Brian Mbeumo, and he was hurt for half the year.
Yeah. Oh.
Matthias Jensen has most assists for him with 3, so that's nice. I just feel like Brentford this year, it really comes down to drop off in their midfield. Honest to God, I think guys like Roshlev and Norgard and Janelt just have not been quite as sharp as years past. And I think that's a huge problem for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down to Norgard and Jan. I mean, Roshlev is more of a wing back
defender, but he's a wing back guy, yeah. But that's kind of how Janelt was, and now they like have to play him almost as like an 8 at times. So who knows? Anything else that stands out to you? We can't give away everything because we have to have something for next week. But
I don't know. I think just in general, like 13 through 20, just the quality is pretty bad this year. Bournemouth down. I'm not digging it. They had one good spell.
Yeah, Bournemouth pulled the Southampton on us.
They did.
They had a good like 7-week run, and it all came at the same time, where it's at like late October, early November run into like Christmas time.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, up to 10th or 9th, oh, and then they just coast the whole rest of the time. I was looking at past tables. Do you remember Southampton getting like 17th in like 2018? I think they had like Claude Puel as their manager or something like that for a good chunk of the year. It was like, I think it was right before the Hans came in.
Specifically,
I don't
not
remember
really.
that.
No.
It was the year Huddersfield was first up and Huddersfield stayed in the Premier League. But I was like, I do not remember Southampton being that close to the drop zone.
Mm.
But then, yeah. So, all right. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Hmm.
Or are you just saving it all for next week?
Anything else that I want to say? Nope. That's it.
Well,
That's
there you
all I
have
got.
it. All right. Well, that'll do it here at the Premiership Perusal Podcast. Like, subscribe, and don't GTFO. Okay. We want you to
GTF
stay around.
in.
Yeah, GTFI.
Sir.
We'll be back next week. Narrative Podcast, covering things we're looking at for every single team as the year wraps up, going into the summer. In the meantime, as Sam always says, keep on perusing.
Keep on perusing and keep on hatting, you hatters.
Adios, mis amigos.
Adios.